Hello and welcome to MarkCodex. My name is Mark, and today we continue working on our MERN Auth application. In part 3 of this series, we will be creating a signup method to our user database. So let's get started. All right, so after we just created the model, the user model, we need to, as I said earlier, we need to create a signup method. So a couple of things I want to go over. I wanted to create a config file, and this config file basically will hold all our environments, so we could pull off all the variables that we want to store in there. We want to create a controller, and that controller will basically a user controller. What it means is basically we're going to create all the functions that it will take the control of the user action. So if a user want to sign up, want to sign in, all of that. And we want to squeeze it in that file. And last but not least, we want to create routing. So routing, we're going to create a user route. So each time like you hit a path like / sign up and sign in, you could take them to that specific functionality. So I guess first things, let's create some config file. And from there, what we can do, let's see, so in the source, we're going to do config, then config.js. And in there, we're going to just do model.exports, and we're going to export an object. And this object will contain, for example, like a DB. So we want to contain all the information that is related to DB. And then we could just say Mongo URI. It will be process.environment MongoDB _URI. Or we're gonna grab that method from our application or the URL right here. We're gonna grab that. So either this or that. Cool. So that's basically will take care of the database config, and what we can do is getting back to the app. What we want to import that file first, and what we want to say, like from there we could just extract or just like deconstruct DB from it, and then we're going to say require. We could do and config. And now we could change right here to db.mongo.uri. And now we will control that from the config. That would be easier for us to like change later, or maybe like we can add like an environment variable for that MongoDB URI. So that being done, let's go ahead and create our controller. So we're going to create a controllers folder, and in there we're going to do a user controller.js. Great. So first we wanted to import user from models. And then we wanted to just model that exports an object. So what I always like to do in basically like in any user controllers, I usually add like find by ID method. So I could use later, and we will see like where we're going to use that. So let's add this pretty quick. So this method will take a request and a response. And let's do an arrow function. And then in there, we're going to create our user. And what we can do is extract user. We don't want all that from the request, because we were going to send like to this function, we're going to push the user object. So if there is no user, what we can do is return res.status of 404 or 400. And then we're gonna send a message. And in here, probably like this message will be somewhat like if the server like just went down. So you could just say like a server is having an issue. Please try again later. You could change this message. It's not like this is like the end of the world if it's not a perfect kind of like message. So lastly, if a user exists, we can just say res.json user. We'll see like where we're going to use that later. Probably like we're going to use it like in the login or someone. So let's keep that. And let's create a signup method. So a signup method will be an async function. And we're going to call it like a signup. And then res, which is for request and response. And we're going to do try catch. In the try, we're going to create a user that will await user.create. And create is a Mongoose method that, you know, basically just like lives inside Mongoose. And then we're going to do request.body because this is where like the object we're going to send an object to this path, which is the signup path that contains the body of like the username and password. And we're going to store it in user. Cool. And then I need to convert all this to JSON. So we could call it user obj JSON, maybe. And then user.to JSON. And to JSON is a JavaScript method that will convert this object to a JSON or whatever, like the string that we're going to receive back. Great. And I did a typo in there. All right. So we're going to return res.send. Now, pay attention here. We're not checking if a user exists or not because like so far this is like a signup method. So basically what I would suggest is that, I mean, I don't know, like what do we want like in the signup? Maybe like we wanted to check if the user exists. So we will catch it in the catch method down there. We don't have to build like any kind of like sort of validation in here. So in here, we're basically in the try, we're just gonna grab the user and we just basically send it to our database or the front end. So we're gonna say user, and then we're gonna just send user, and then we're gonna send user object JSON. And that should be about it. Cool. So in the catch method, what I want to do first, I want to console log the error. Because we're going to like to test it out for now. Because we want to capture whatever we want to have in like from our database. Like we want to capture it if something happened, if something went wrong. And then we can probably like deal with like handle with the logic of if a user exists and whatnot. But I want to console log the error for now so we could see what is that object that comes back if we hit all these errors that I talked about. Because like in our model, if you remember, we already did the unique in here and lowercase and the trim, all that. If that basically, well, the unique, it will pass by an error. If you use like the same username, it will basically tell you like, hey, there's a user already exists in the database. So I don't have to build like some sort of logic in there for that. Great. So let's go. And probably in the error, it is safe to actually just send a status of, well, not 404, a 400. .send, and we could just say also error. And in here, probably we can say database. Well, it's not secure to say database having a problem, but we could just say like something is wrong for now. Cool. So now let's go ahead and create, you guessed it, the routes. So in the routes, we're gonna create a folder and we're gonna call it routes, and oops, we're gonna call it routes. In the routes, we're gonna have index.js as usual, and then we're gonna create no file user route.js. Great. So that once that is actually like finished, we can do is import express, and then we're gonna probably like import the user route from that user route. So we're gonna do require user route, and then we're gonna create our router. So this will take care of all the routes, and it will add it to a big object that will always like you could call, and when you call, it will basically like each path you could reuse everywhere. So we're gonna say router.get, and what do I want to here? We want to create a signup method. So we could say, or a signup path. So signup route, and then we're gonna do rec and res, and then we're gonna just do res.json, and probably for now, actually, you know what? Let's do like just the path, because like this is what I want to. Okay, so in the index, I want it to route to every other route. So I'm gonna call back the user from the user route. So this, I'm just gonna call it a user. So sorry about that. And what we want to do is not get. We want to just do use from there. And then we're just going to call the user. So we're going to use the route in here so we could import it from routes. And in routes, we're going to go over all these signup methods. So in here, we're going to do const. Instead of like exporting express, you could just do require and then express. And then you could immediately call, oops, dot router, like that. So you don't have to, like what we did in here, you have like two variables. You could just make it one variable, one-liner. A lot of people love that. Great, and then we're gonna grab our user controller. And in here, we're gonna say require, and then we're gonna go up one level. We're gonna go to the controller and grab user controllers. And that's it. Great. In here, as we imported this from the index, so we are on path user, and I'm probably gonna need to change the path in the app.js right here, but let's continue on finishing the routes. So in the user, we're gonna create a post request. So we're gonna call router.post, and this post request will be signup. And in the signup, we're going to use user controller. A lot of you complained last time about like the bubbles that show up when you type in, when I type in. So sorry about that. I don't know. You could comment down below and tell me like how to shut it off. And we're going to call the method signup. And that's it. We have our route. And then what we can do, or what we should do, is model.exports, and we want to export router. Probably we need to do this as well in here. Model.exports equal router. Cool. So now let's go ahead and grab it way over there. And let's see, in the app, what we want to do is actually, so what I wanted to have like some sort of like an API. So this is like an API. So what I want to do, I'm going to grab the routes from the index and I'm going to call it API, and I will give it a path of API with a version. So it will basically pass in all the way to the routes in here. to change to API /v1 / user. And then in the user routes, it will be user /signup. It's just easier to see that way. So let's do that. So in the routes right here, I'm just going to keep this route right there and say app.use. And in there, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say API /v1. And I will call the API. And the API, I'm going to import it from, let's see, I probably need to put it before the express. And let's do const API equal require routes. Like that. Great. So from there, every path inside the index will be a route. Route matches API v1 like that user. So this is the path of that. Trying to think if I wanted to create just like some sort of like a validation path, just like if anybody hit like API v1, but it's not necessary. I think that's it. Trying to see like if there's anything wrong. So we did export router, and we did export router in here. We got sign up in the post. So route matches API v1 user and then sign up. So that's the path. I guess we can run and see if everything works. So let's do npm run watch. Call watch, right? Dev. Okay. npm run dev. Cool. So everything works. Now let's go. Actually, let's see if our route is actually working. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add some sort of like a validation in the route. Right, user here. And I'm just going to say router.get. And we're going to say like / comma, and then we're going to do recres. And then we're going to do just res.send message. And in here, maybe we could add an emoji of a laptop. So if I hit the route of user, I should see this message. Now, there's two ways to test this. Either I can test it for this part, I can test it in a browser, or I want to test it in a program called Insomnia, which is this one. And I already create like a dashboard for it. And in here, this one is basically, we can test our paths and routes. And I do highly recommend using something like that. Maybe you don't have to use Insomnia, you could use Postman. I do prefer Insomnia. It's easier and it's just basically simpler. So we're gonna create a new request, and in our request, we're gonna say get, we're gonna call it get. Maybe we could call it like API v1. Create that, and then in here, we're gonna do HTTP localhost 3001 / API / v1 / user. My SCD is kicked in. Okay. Cool. So if I hit this send, I receive my message. So everything looks good. So let's create a post request. And we're going to call it post. And then API, v1, user, and sign up. It's going to be as post. It's going to be the same URL, but we're going to change to add sign up. And in the body, we're going to change it to a JSON object. And in the JSON object, we have username. And in here, the username, Just gonna call it Marco. Why not? And in the password field, we're gonna have password. Why not? Just pass. Great. So let's hit send, and we just create our first user. Now I want to see the error message that I'm gonna receive from here. I just want to see if I hit that send again. Let me just change this here. If I hit the same path, the same object, I just want to see what error we will see. And we grab this something is wrong, which basically is this status right here. That's why you see like it's 400. All right. Now, I just want to see the error in here. And we could just tell that it says like duplicate key, and that means it's the same username. And if we look down, we could see like key value or key pattern has the word username. And that's great because I could key on that to create some sort of validation and just say, okay, well, if there is the same user, just do that. So we're gonna capture that by saying, we're gonna create just like an if statement. And in if statement, we're going to use object.keys, because again, this is an object, right? And we're going to grab the key inside this object. So we're going to say error dot. We could grab key value, key pattern, like both of them will work. Let's do key value. Key value. And we're going to do 0. And if this equal to username, now what we can say, we could just send a message. So we could grab the same thing in here. We could return. And we could just say, so in here, I could just say this username already exists. And in this case, I just create some sort of validation. Then it will basically just tell me exactly what's happening. And I could send it to the front end and use it from there. So let's hit this sign up again. And we could see this username already exists. So if I change the username to Marco1, I have a new user. If I hit the same one, I got the error. All right, now we just finished our sign up method. We will be ending our part 3 in the series. In next video, we will be building the sign in methods and its authentication. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when the next video is uploaded. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious.